Welcome to the Dangerously Divine podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Loren, entrepreneur, life coach, and your new spiritual bestie. We dive deep into all things feminine magnetism, mindset, and empowerment. Prepare to unlock your full potential and activate your feminine gifts. If you're an ambitious woman who's ready to stop playing small, step into your feminine power, and claim a life beyond your wildest dreams, then you're in the right place. So go ahead and turn up the volume. You're about to hear juicy stories, inspirational advice, and transformational tips that'll help you up-level your life and align with the divine goddess within you. More self-confidence, freedom, and abundance are all just a play away. Thank you for listening and enjoy this episode. Hello, and welcome back to the Dangerously Divine podcast. Today, I'm joined by Ayesha Sodha, who is the founder of RoarWise Coaching and Consulting. Ayesha is an entrepreneur supporting business growth across borders, a personal power coach, and a philanthropist. Thank you so much for joining us today, Ayesha.
Thank you for having me here. I'm excited.
Yes, this is going to be such a great episode. Today, we are talking about how to trust in divine timing and when things that you seemingly lose end up serving you. So, Isha, why don't you start and kick us off by giving a brief introduction of how you started RoarWise Coaching and what led you, here today?
Thank you. So I've spent about 20 years working. 17 years of those was working for other people, mostly in the corporate sector in technology. I've worked across the UK. I used to live in New York and worked there, lived in Dubai, and I've just worked across multiple sectors across the world. And I think there'd always been an itch to start my own business, but it was only when the latest episode of Things Falling Apart that I ended up really taking my coaching business more seriously last year. And it was created from 7 years of organically coaching people that I decided that it was perhaps my path to start really helping people on purpose rather than by accident. So last year, I'd had a concept that had been sitting with me for 2 years, which was how to enable people to close business more effectively and efficiently. Something that I saw was really a big difference between men and women over the last few years when I was living in Dubai. What was the secret formula to some people getting funding or jobs or collaborations or clients much more quickly than other people? And I realized it was just about asking for what you want in a very straightforward, direct way, which a lot of people are so uncomfortable with. So on that basis, I ended up starting what I call the Business Cigar Lounge, which I've renamed since because people got so confused. But it's based on the premise of people being able to conduct business and close business over the time it takes to smoke a cigar, i.e. the way that business has been done by the old boys network for centuries.
I love that name. I I sort of wish you didn't change it because that makes so much sense.
Yes, I do love that name. And it's so funny. I'd been sitting with the idea for 2 years and I couldn't think of a name. And I ended up just launching it as the Business Cigar Lounge because I realized that perfection was killing productivity.
Say that again.
Right, perfection kills productivity.
Hell yeah.
And profit, ultimately, right? So the more you try to perfect things, the more you just don't get started. So I was like, fine, let's just launch it, leave it. The name doesn't matter. It can always be rebranded later, but let's just get it out there and let's see if it works in the market. Actually, it's been working so successfully for over a year now that people just come out of the sessions and they just close business. They sign contracts, they do collaborations, people get hired, and it's just been brilliant. And whilst I'd originally concepted it for women to help coach women through, I launched it with Soho House, and they have a policy of not being gender biased on anything. So they won't allow you to actually deliver any sessions for any particular gender on the basis that why wouldn't men need business coaching too?
So everything is tailored to men?
Essentially, it's a really good topic that I think we could probably talk about for a very long time. But I have noticed that my sessions are literally 50%. 50-50 men and women. And men are coming in for that business coaching too, which I never expected to see happen. And some sessions, I find that there are more men there And I don't know whether it was because the title of the Business Cigar Lounge would attract more men, but since I've renamed it, I think I've got more women coming in.
Mm-hmm.
But it feels like the coaching requirement for how you build your business and grow your business is pervasive across everybody. I just think that there is, with men, they always have to show their machoism, right? They can never really show weakness. Whereas we are, in some senses, allowed to and promoted to show some vulnerability.
Right. That's very true. It's so funny because whenever I tell men that I do feminine empowerment and embodiment coaching, the first thing I get is like, "Oh, can I do it too?" And I jokingly say, "I don't think as a man you need to be more empowered." But I've had so many men ask me, and I mean, it's maybe something that I will offer down the line, but right now I've studied so much of like female psychology that it's almost like I would be doing a disservice if I were to do it right now. But it's crazy like how many men are fascinated by, I think, powerful women.
I think so. And I think that there is this element of being fascinated by powerful women, but also terrified of them. And that is what I think, from my experience, has made me very conscious about being a powerful woman. And it's made me feel like I couldn't be powerful until at least the last few years, and really tap into that power that I have within inside me unapologetically.
Right.
Because people who aren't in their power, who don't feel secure, especially men or even women, will tell you that there's something wrong with you for being too powerful. You're coming across too masculine. Why are you so powerful? You don't need to act like that. Why are you acting like a man? And I think that the more secure people feel, they'll tell you that it's fantastic that you're powerful and that they love that power energy rather than being so afraid and ashamed by it. I love this book called The Four Agreements. And one of the things that they say is don't take things personally, because that's their stuff. So every time someone says something to you that is condescending, criticizing, patronizing, that's, aimed to bring you down, it's because they're struggling with that. And it's one of the most amazing lessons to keep at the forefront of your mind. Very, very hard to constantly put it in practice. But if you keep reminding yourself of it, that that's their stuff, not mine. Their stuff, not mine. And I think that that's something that really helps you to kind of step in and move forward in your power, and just do it without shame.
Yeah. That's why I like so wholeheartedly agree with you, because it's been something that I've had to repeat to myself over and over and over again. And now it's second nature. And now I don't take things personally, but it's so hard and you're like, but my feelings are hurt, or but my ego is getting in the way. You just constantly have to remind yourself until it becomes like that. This conversation could not have come at a better time, because me and one of my new friends and dear friends who I met at a conference decided to start co-working together. And we're both, growing our businesses. And I was like, okay, like let's co-work every Monday night and just get on the computer and like really sit down and get a couple hours of work done. This week was our first week of doing that. And she had told me that she like got some like check from an investor and she didn't know where it came from, or maybe it was from a grant or something like that. And I was like, "What? You have investors? You have grants?" I'm like, "How do you get that?" And she's like, "Well, my friend's family and then other ones started rolling in and people started talking and I just put myself out there and got them." And it was something that came so second nature to her. But I had never even like had that thought in my mind to get financial help from other people, that it was like a light bulb went off and I was like, "Oh my God, what? Like I can do that?" And it was really gratifying in myself that I don't have to do everything alone. But also, I think to what you said is like, specifically me, maybe I don't know how to close business deals, or like maybe I'm too afraid to, put myself out there in that kind of way, because I've never heard of anyone doing what I do and also getting funding. So I think this episode could not have come at a better time.
Everything's about flow, as we were discussing earlier. It's excellent. I do think that there's wiring, right? There's cultural wiring between men and women. And I think men are more culturally prone to saying, I want money. It's
Yeah.
okay. I'll get a loan. I will ask for funders. I will ask for investment because I am amazing and you want to invest in me. And I think that this is where women fall a little bit flat. So if you look at the statistics of the number of women getting funded versus the number of men, it's very, very low. It's only, I think, 2.3%. It's actually, I've just literally launched a blog on it yesterday because I've launched this program for women, which we can talk about more later. But I think that there is that cultural difference between men and women asking for money, asking for help, but also believing in themselves. So women are far less likely to apply for jobs if they only meet 50 or 60% of the criteria of the job description. Whereas men will go, oh, I can do 50% of that. I can wing the rest. And that's the difference. And we keep talking about there needing to be systematic changes for women to feel empowered or to feel in their personal power. But that's ridiculous. Nobody can empower you except yourself. What people can do is give you the tools to take control of your personal power. So there are systematic changes going on. There are grants available. There is funding available. There is mentoring available. But it's about whether women are tapping into that or not. It's about whether women will ultimately ask for that raise, ask for that job, even apply or step out of their house to get it. And then that isn't the fault of the world or corporate America or corporate Europe or anywhere else. That is the fault of the individual. And I think that's where we need to really close the gap on individually feeling more empowered to do what we need to do. And just going back to your point about thinking about, oh, never thought it was possible to get funding. It's about external help, right? And you think, oh, but why would anybody be interested in little old me? And it's about actually just think about what you're doing as a woman, as an entrepreneur. Tell me your age again.
I'm 28.
See, you're 28. At 28, I had no idea how to start a business I wouldn't have ever championed for myself in that way. I was working in a man's world and just surviving and being able to feel my voice and get things done was a big enough thing for me. But the idea of doing multiple things and starting my own business and helping others wasn't even on my radar. So imagine what you have achieved at the age of 28. You're on season 3 of your own podcast. You're a published author, right? And we were talking about your book earlier, and I can think of somebody immediately I would want to send your book to. But if we don't keep recognizing the wonderful things and the achievements that we have done as women, we will never progress.
Right.
And I think it's such a good thing to constantly remind ourselves, I've done this. I've got through this. This is who I am. I am so much more powerful than I think. And as you become more and more into that cycle of going, wow, I can do this, you manifest more magic and you attract more because you realize you can do so much more than you ever thought was possible. And with that, you attract energy like this new friend who you're co-working with. You've attracted somebody else in their power. And because she's in her power, she's telling you how to step more into your power, which is, by the way, I have an investor. This is how you get investment. This is how you get funding.
Yeah, it's insane. And I think that I've recently kind of stepped into that powerful role. All of my listeners are sick of me saying the same story. But I used to get the ick when people said they were starting podcasts. And I was like, okay, well, there must be some kind of mental block there. And I realized that it was a block of being seen and being heard. And my throat chakra was so closed that I was like, well, if that's my fear and I get the ick from it, that's the one thing I have to do. And in doing the thing that makes you feel uncomfortable, you start having that confidence. And even kind of back to the point that you made, you just have to do it. Do it wrong, fail a million times, just get it out there because it's, that perfectionism, what did you say, is killing your productivity. I have on my vision board, your comfort zone will kill you. I'm not going to butcher the quote that you said. I made you say it twice.
And I can say it again. Perfectionism kills productivity. Perfectionism kills profits.
Yeah.
Both are equally true, right? So you won't make money if you keep trying to be perfect.
There it is. So
you are talking about being in the flow, right? What you have just said about fears and blocks is exactly what I'd been thinking about this morning over my cup of coffee, which is literally all the things that we fear the most are the things that we need to get over. And for yours, likewise, podcasting, I've had at least 15 people tell me in the last 3 months that I need to start a podcast. And I've had multiple people ask me over the last week, why don't you have more Instagram followers? And honestly, I've had this fear and this block of being out there, being seen, actually really telling my story, because there's a part of it that I know inspires, but then there's another side of it that is so deep and so huge within me. It's like the fear of, can I share this? Is it okay to share such a big part of me? What will people think?
Right.
How will they judge me? How will they see me? And I think it's wonderful for people to just get out there and go, it's okay.
Yeah. Let's get into a little bit juicier of details. You said that you decided after a couple years or a couple years ago to start your own thing after things kind of fell apart in your life. So, can we get into a little bit of that story and any lessons that you've learned that have helped you along the way?
Absolutely. I mean, my life has fallen apart, I would say 3 times, 3 major times. And every single time it's fallen apart, mostly by near-death experiences, I have to say. I have literally rebuilt my life from scratch. So I'm going to go with the first one, which is probably the deepest, because I probably learned the most from that first one. About 10 years ago, I was living in New York and I was engaged to a man who I had literally got engaged to through pure peer pressure. My family was pressurizing me a lot. My cultural background is Indian, and there is a cultural tendency to put a lot of pressure on your kids to get married. Now, I gave in to peer pressure and I literally said okay to getting engaged to a man who I knew right from the beginning it wasn't going to work with, but I did it anyway from peer pressure, just because he was from the same background, accepted the fact that I came from a divorced family, and he had hair. That was literally the criteria. That's how much I thought of myself. That's how much self-confidence I had.
Mhm.
And when we broke up, because he didn't think that I was a good investment to get married into, I left New York. I just finished working at a sales role. I broke up with my fiance and I literally left in 24 hours. I left my entire life in New York. I left everything behind. I packed my suitcases and I went home back to the UK. And I was broken. I did nothing but cry. And I probably cried nonstop for about a month because I had felt like such a failure.
Right.
How could I fail my family in such a major way to actually get engaged and then not be engaged anymore? You don't do that in Indian culture. And my family had literally got me engaged in front of 150 family members. And so it was a huge deal. It was devastating in terms of like their pride being let down in all sorts of ways. And I wasn't working at that point. So I sat there and I felt like I'd failed in every area of my life, every single area. And I was like, how could this possibly have happened? So I spent about 6 months completely depressed. And I thought a lot about, oh my God, I don't want to continue anymore. If I can't succeed at life, then how can I keep moving forward? And at some point, I'm generally a person who doesn't like to be miserable. I like to be happy. I find misery very boring, generally. So at some point during this journey, I asked myself the question, are we going to live or are we going to die? It's literally comes down to 2 choices. I decided I wasn't going to die because I wouldn't do that to my mother. So I chose to live. And part of this journey, I wrote down almost a bucket list of everything that I would miss out on if life were to end tomorrow. And as soon as I made that decision, it's like everything came together and gave me the path to heal. And so a lot of reflection came up. My mum owns a holistic wellness center in Edinburgh. All the therapists, piece by piece, came along and said, right, how do we help heal you? I went from everything from tarot card readings to theta healing, to Reiki healing, to every single piece. And it was the biggest and deepest level of transformation that was awful, and it was painful, and it lasted 11 months. And it was literally a full grieving process. What I had to grieve was a life that I thought I had wanted to live, but it wasn't really what I wanted to live. So I feel like there's a huge kind of lesson in that point of going, okay, this is what I thought I wanted in life. And I have been leading myself down the wrong path. And because of that, the universe has whipped me back into shape in the most awful ways, in the most painful ways. But that transformation was literally was huge. And it started, for the first time in my life, I started to question, what if you stopped letting life happen to you and started doing things on purpose, which had never been a concept to me in my life. And so that was kind of the biggest first step, was understanding that you could live life on purpose. It was this moment when I was having a tarot card reading where she said to me, imagine that life is a movie for you right now. So everything has collapsed. Everything has gone away. So you're starting from scratch. So imagine your life as an entire movie, a script that you're writing, you're directing, you are the protagonist in it, and you're producing the entire thing. What would it look like? You know, I'd been working for 20 years, so therefore I was in school a long time ago. And the education system at that point was just very much like, you choose a profession, you get a job, and then you stay in it. It was never about, okay, what do you really like? It was more about what is going to give you credibility, what is going to give you that title, what is going to give you the salary that your family can be proud of saying that that's what you have. So it was just, the biggest thing was just questioning all these societal beliefs that I had from my upbringing, from people around me, everything that had been indoctrinated into me, and going, well, hang on a second, who is Ayesha Sodha actually? What does she want? And that would probably be like the biggest lesson that I learned first. But I don't know whether that answers your question or whether you wanted me to answer something else.
Yeah, 100%. And thank you so much for sharing all of that with me and with the listeners. I started to get like tears welling up in my eyes because I've also been in a little bit of a similar situation. But I think that the universe shows us signs in so many ways, and our small little human brains can only interpret so many. And sometimes we don't even listen to that inner voice, because I'm sure looking back at it now, you might have seen like one or two, or maybe a couple instances where you felt that ting of intuition that, like, oh, maybe this is not great for me. Maybe I shouldn't get married. Maybe, this is not the city I should be living in. But when we ignore those, then the universe gets really loud. And if it's the wrong path, like, I'm a true believer that, like, you'll never be guided wrong. And so if you're heading down the wrong path, the universe is gonna grab you from that and just put you where you need to be. And you might have to climb out of a sticky situation. And I mean, I'm happy that you did. What you were just talking about with society really reminded me. I was just at the Afghan American conference. My dad is from Afghanistan. We go to, like, it's a 3-day conference. Some of it is cultural, some of it is like history, and there's a part of it that's pretty much focused on relationships and the self and healing yourself. And I was in one session on masculinity and like toxic masculinity and what that looks like and how to overcome that. But there were so many women there, and we were all kind of talking about the same thing, that, if women feel like they have to, provide for themselves and get a job and, also be in control of their emotions and of everything and of the household. And they're living both parts, they're masculine and feminine. And it doesn't leave space for the feminine to thrive. And our culture is so foundationally masculine. And at the end of the session, like a man asked a question. He's like, what can we do to support you? So there were some people saying, like, be in your healthy masculine energy so that women can feel safe enough to be in their feminine. And I raised my hand and I actually said, men need to learn to value the things that women bring, because everything is not about how much money you make or how successful you are or what job you have or what degree you graduated with. There is value in the traits of the feminine, in that nurturing energy, in creativity and entrepreneurship and connection. And we need to see more value in less concrete things.
I agree with you in many respects, but I would actually go one step further and say, what I think we need from men is support to be as powerful as we can be. So if a woman is earning more than you, working more hours than you, then I think that needs to be recognized, and I don't think it's about you feeling insecure about that. I think it's about you supporting that. And there aren't enough men who feel secure enough in themselves that would allow a woman to, or support a woman to succeed. And I think a lot of the times there is so much cultural belief and a lot of cultural raising that, because remember, we're talking about you're from a different generation and I'm from a different generation. So if you speak to a lot of women who were brought up around my age in their 40s or like late 30s to 50s, they were brought up in a world where they were encouraged to get married and be taken care of by their husbands. And I think that that is very wrong for women because they lose respect not only for themselves, but other people lose respect for them too. I think that a lot of what happened to me in my first major trauma situation, or when my life broke down for the first time, everything was a mirror of how I felt about myself. So the whole financial situation that came up with my ex-fiance was something I felt about myself. I didn't feel financially secure enough. I didn't feel like I was living in my power. I did not feel like I was a good enough investment. So therefore, everything came to the forefront and I attracted a partner who mirrored that and rebounded that at me. So I think that it's more about picking up the signals, exactly what you said before. If you are not in the right place, the universe will literally swing you about and push you into place because it will put you on a journey of so much discomfort and so much pain until you wake up one day and go, no, I deserve better than this. I am going to move. Universe, help me. Help me get universe, God, angel, whoever you believe in. You've got to just then go, no, this isn't good enough for me. I deserve better. Please help me along my way and push me along the right path again. And help will come from every single direction. I think it's really, really important for more women to be financially stable. And this is something I hugely believe in. I remember being on a plane to Spain, maybe about 15 years ago. I was in my early 20s and there was a woman sitting next to me and we just got talking. And she was talking about a very abusive relationship that she'd come out of. And she was saying that, he was physically abusive, emotionally abusive, mentally abusive. And I said, why did you stay so long? And she said, because I didn't have the money to leave. I didn't have the financial means to leave. She said, the one thing I would always say to every single woman is have a running away fund. Have a running away fund that nobody else knows about. So many people feel stuck. And it's usually money that gets them feeling stuck. And if you actually work on making sure that you have those financial means, you have your rainy day fund, you have your means to keep moving by yourself, you have a way to earn your own money. I think it's so important for you to have that so that you know you have choices in life. And I think choices are one thing that so many women, even girls all over the world, they don't have. I mean, you're half Afghani, right? You know that girls in Afghanistan aren't allowed, a lot of the time, they aren't allowed to go to school. They're not allowed to be educated. They then don't have any choices of when they get married. We have choices. And I think it's really important that we understand the power of the choice that we have in life. And to maximize those choices, we need to make sure that we have a platform for our own selves individually to feel like we have freedom. And the thing that gives you the biggest freedom is money. It's just a lubricant, but it's important.
Yeah, 100%. And I think too, we have to acknowledge the privilege that we have. And I think it would be almost like a slap in the face to all of the women that don't have the privilege to have their own bank accounts and to make their own money that we don't. Like, of course we have to, because it's our right as, citizens of whatever country we're a part of, that if we have this right to exercise, freaking do it, because it's there for a reason. And, unfortunately, you never know.
1000%. And I think, I'd written about this because I think that we have an obligation, not even just a right, but an obligation to every single girl and woman who doesn't have a choice in life to live our absolute best selves and our best lives. Because otherwise, it's literally a slap in the face to them. If you stood next to somebody who wasn't allowed access to education and you said to them, oh, I'm not sure about my life because I can't afford that Gucci handbag I want and I'm not feeling like I'm in shape. I mean, really? They would be like, are you crazy, girl? Like, I would swap my life with yours in a heartbeat because I've been married off at 16 to a man I can't stand. He's 20 years older than me. I can't leave. I have no choices. I have nothing in my name. Are you kidding me that you are unhappy? And I just think that's like a real big moment of, wow, I can do anything that I want because I'm a privileged bitch. Like,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, am I allowed to swear? Because I have a bit of like,
I love it. And also, like, I feel that this podcast is focused on self-improvement, and the fact that, like, I can even record this and people can listen to it. Like, I was looking at my analytics and I'm like, "Oh, people in Turkey are listening and people in Sri Lanka." And I'm like, "Cool." But also acknowledging that, the obligations, the rights are different in these countries is like, maybe if word is getting out, like, knowledge is power. And I think social media and, podcasting platforms and blogs and the internet is such a positive if we choose to turn it into that, because it's being heard around the world.
and I think you've hit the nail on the head, right? Using social media in the right way can be such a positive force for change. Imagine if one person hears this and they change their life as a result. And I think that I personally, I have always had a challenge between the two sides because I know so many people who have created this fluff of image in social media, and you meet them in person and it's without substance. And I think I've had that fear of becoming that person. So I've never put myself out there. Whereas I've had countless people tell me over the last year, can you please just share your stories in different ways, because there aren't enough people around us, especially women around us, that can inspire us to break the mold and live a different life. And that's where really the power of social media exists, if you choose to use it in the right way and not be all about your ego, right? We've talked a lot about ego, but it's really about that, right? How much does our ego get in the way of us being able to actually move forward and help others and make our businesses more successful and be out there and ask for things? If we were just it's a great thing if you can recognize your ego, but call it a name. Mine's called Bob, right? My little ego, my little thing that has a voice that keeps telling me I can't do it, or that I'm going to be judged, or I should be afraid. I think once you name your ego and you recognize it and you make it a separate part of you, you can start to talk to it and go, okay, this isn't about that. Let's go back to the bigger vision. And is it serving the bigger vision? Let's stop thinking about everything about other people. I think at the end of the day, we think so much about what will stop us and hold us back and how other people will view us. I think at the end of the day, most people don't care.
Yeah.
People care more about the positive stuff than the negative. Like you'll say, people are like listening to your podcast in remote areas who really need to hear the inspiration. And imagine if you've not got over the fear. Imagine the number of women's lives you're changing just through going, okay, I'm going to feel the fear and do it anyway. And for that impact to be there, it's just such a wonderful thing.
Yeah. There's this part of Schitt's Creek, I don't know if you're familiar with that show,
Yeah.
where like Alexis is giving a pep talk to her brother David, and she's like, "No one thinks about you as much as you think about you." And for some reason, that line just resonated with me because I'm like, duh, if I'm thinking about myself, other people are probably thinking about themselves. No one's thinking about me. Like, hello. And that's really
It's so
helped
true.
me.
It is actually so true, right? And I think we just so many of us keep thinking, oh, well, what did I think about that outfit? Or what did I think about this? And what did I think about, oh, I made a blunder. It's like people who perform on stage, they'll miss a line, or they'll do or ballet dancers might do one step wrong and they'll go, oh, everyone noticed. Whereas nobody noticed because it was the tiniest thing. The only person who noticed was you yourself. But everybody else is looking at the bigger picture, which might be their life or how you fit into their life, or not you at all, but how they're doing and all the worries that they have on a daily basis. So I think it's a very, very good line to keep in mind.
Yeah. And the last thing I'm going to say about social media is that I'm so grateful for Gen Z being the ones to kind of spearhead the new social media movement, because kudos to them. They are showing up crying on social media. Like, they're showing their like messy breakups. Like, they are coming so authentically. And I feel like you might be part of this generation also of people who, like, you have to be perfect. You have to have the perfect Instagram feed and the perfect like stories, and like, don't publish something if it's not great. And like, going back to what we said initially, like that, eventually just kill any productivity you have. But also like this new generation is like, no, I'm me and I'm gonna show up the way that I'm meant to. And if you don't like it, fuck you. I mean, I've seen a lot of negative comments from that, but also like I'm happy to say that like I'm learning something from the next generation.
No, and I do think it's great. I think that the way that the Gen Z population are operating is that they're stepping up and going, right, I'm just going to do it. And that ability to just do it is something that my generation didn't have. We were always about being perfect, have always been about being perfect. And we look at this new generation, we're like, but how do they do it? How do they just step out there? And I think that is the great thing to learn. Where I think things can be a little bit scary is my sister was telling me about how the TikTok algorithm, I'm not on TikTok in a way, but excuse me, how the TikTok algorithm actually picks up negative comments and brings you more negativity and
Yeah.
keeps showing you feeds of more negativity. And I think that's where social media can be immensely destructive and put people more into depressive modes and put people more down and and then you become like a product more of your environment that you didn't try to be just because of one mood in one place and space. But then that energy spirals out of control. I think it's really important that people are like just conscious of that because your energy is so precious. Make sure that you're clear about the media that you're consuming. I don't watch anything negative. I don't watch the news. I don't, and some people might think I'm crazy for that, but my energy is so important to me that I would not watch something like Breaking Bad because it would sit there and sit in my subconscious for the next 10 years. And I don't want that negative energy anywhere around me. And people often don't realize that the media they consume is what they become energetically and what they give out. I love the fact that you mentioned Schitt's Creek because Schitt's Creek is great because it makes you laugh and it puts you into that positive spin. If, however, you're watching Game of Thrones, it's dark energy that you're consuming. And yes, it's thrilling and it's something that you can totally focus on. But imagine all the things going on in a show like that and how that then consumes your energy field and affects you internally in very subtle ways that you're not even thinking about. Sorry, that got really deep.
No, I'm so happy you said that because I've been given a lot of shit for like only watching like documentaries and comedies and things like that. And people are like, Rachel, like this show is so good, Game of Thrones, or like this movie is so good. And for me, it's the same exact thing. I'm like, I don't even want to watch a commercial for a horror film or something like that because yeah, it's gonna sit up there and it's crazy. So thank you for saying that. You just validated something within me. And I completely, yeah, wanna, like, double say this warning to everyone because I was even on TikTok the other day, and there was a school shooting in Georgia that happened not too long ago. And so I was like, "Okay, like, let me see what happened, like, let me educate myself a little bit." And then every video I see is about the school shooting, and I'm watching the evolution happen about suicide, and then about, like, people getting killed and murdered and raped and things like that, and I spent 2 hours doing it because it's so consuming, and I was like, "What the fuck? I didn't mean to do this," like, but that's all the algorithm kept showing me, and I, like, walked away from my phone, and I'm like, "Oh, like, now I am in the worst mood, I feel agitated, and I feel uncomfortable in my body," and I was like I went back on it, and I, like, selected each video, and I was like, "Not interested, not interested, not interested," but the algorithm is almost really playing into the negativity because it's what keeps you in the app. It kept me there for 2 hours, and I don't even watch that stuff, and I'm like, "Whoa." If you're in a spiral like that or maybe just kind of down in life, or even if something happens that's like your story or like mine, where your whole life is kind of shaken up, do you have any either long term or short term solutions to help pull people out and like take that step forward in the right direction?
Oh, 1000%. I think you need to acknowledge that you're in a bad place, first of all. You need to know, okay, this is a bad space. So life collapses. How many times it happens to you in your life, I don't know. But I think the universe, if you're not listening to the nudges and learning your lessons, then sometimes the universe can literally land you on your ass and you end up in a really bad space where work isn't working, relationship is bad, all your friends have, just everything can come to a total standstill. And I think it's really about then acknowledging, firstly, what is the lesson that I'm supposed to learn? At the age of 17, I read this book by Barbara Evangelist called 10 Things About Life That Every Woman Should Know. And one thing in there, she talked about universe's lessons in life. And every single time that you don't listen to a nudge, the universe will knock harder, knock harder, knock harder until you are literally on your ass in the most awful way. So I think it's the first thing is, what am I supposed to learn? The second thing is going through actually the stages of grief, learning to let go, learning to acknowledge the fact that you have lost something, going through the anger, going through the fear, going through the absolute phase of, oh my God, what have I done? And just acknowledging all of these awful feelings and letting it all out. So whether that is through screaming, boxing, journaling is a really brilliant one that I find has been my savior. But any which way you can find a way to let it go. One of my best tips and tricks is to take negative things on a piece of paper, write them down individually, say thank you for what it's given to me in my life, and then burn the paper. So you're literally having a cathartic ritual of letting it go.
Right. I love that.
And then it's about knowing that everything that has just happened to you was to put you into a better place and go, okay, maybe you're starting from scratch again. Starting from scratch is actually the best one. When you lose everything all at once and you're like, panic. But when you go, okay, I'm now at the acceptance stage. This means that I can start again. This means I literally get a blank canvas in life. What am I going to do with my blank canvas? And then you start to go, wow, let's start to shape every single area of my life. It's how I ended up creating a program of mine called the Life Strategy Session. It was when 7 years ago or 8 years ago, I don't know, time flies. I wasn't happy with where I was, and neither was a friend of mine. And we sat down to do a bit of strategy, just brainstorm it out and figure it out. And me being a crazy person for structure, I started to write down some questions that we should answer. And then we put a timer on it. And then it then became this exercise where both of our lives changed in 6 months. And every single person that I've delivered that to has had their life change anywhere between an hour thereafter to 6 to 12. And it's been revolutionary just by saying, what do I actually want in my life if life was a blank? And what it really does is allow you to go inside your subconscious and bring things up that you were scared to say out loud because you're journaling with yourself, you're brainstorming with yourself. So it's a safe space, and because you're on a timer, like it just comes out. So it's a great way. And I do think the things that we go through in life are the things that we are given as a gift to pass on. And I've felt like that for about 7 years, ever since the first episode of things going really, really wrong. Kept asking myself, like, why have I gone through it? So it's so painful. It's so awful. Why don't other people go through this? And I've gone through this. And ever since then, I've had this niggle in the back of my mind that maybe it all happened so that I could help others. Maybe that's what my purpose is in life, to just help others through the experiences that I've been through. And I don't want anybody to go through the things that I've gone through. And so if I can help people, like nudge people in the right direction before the universe lands you on your ass, I'd like to do that, And I think that's also a part of what you do is helping people to step into themselves before things go wrong. And it's really key, like taking control of your life before the universe takes control of you and puts you in an uncomfortable position.
Yeah. And I just said this on the last episode that I recorded, but I think that once you figure out like a positive way and you've kind of healed parts of yourself, you want to share it with the world. And that's why, there's so many like religious organizations who like are like a little culty, but it's because they've found what works for them and they want to share it. And it's the same with all of these healing modalities. And I always say like all roads lead to Rome. I know you talked about doing tarot cards and Reiki healing. And I think you could have just chosen one or two of them. I don't even think you had to do all of them. But it's like there's so many ways to heal through journaling, through meditation, through Reiki, through hypnosis, whatever. But I think once you find what works for you and it clicks, then you want to share that gift with so many other people, uh, because I think that's just the nature of healing yourself.
1000%. I clearly agree with you so much that I've said 1000% at least 6 times on this podcast. I'm like, wow, we are so in alignment. I did a lot of different healing techniques, and I think that cumulatively, they helped me unlock really, really, really deep trauma. During that biggest time of healing that I went through over the 11 months, there was a moment I remember feeling like I had spent my entire life breathing with one lung, and suddenly I had two.
Wow.
The energetic shift was absolutely humongous, that I became the happiest person. I just felt so light. And I kept thinking to myself, Red Bull gives you wings, but so does healing. Like, oh my God, if you let it all go, if you let go of the trauma, wow, can you breathe again?
Yeah. And it's in some way going to be an up level. And I think if we change our mindset, then we change everything, and we just step further and further into that flow, into that alignment. Ayesha, this has been such a great conversation. I think we need to record another episode, because we started talking about your business and about women and what they ask for and being, too afraid and feeling that fear. And like, we got off of that topic, and if you're open to it, I would love to have you on again just to talk about being a woman in business and an entrepreneur, because I think you also have a lot of great wisdom to share there. But I've loved what we've talked about. We went over so many things. So Ayesha, I'll put all your website, your businesses, your social links into the description. But thank you, listeners, for tuning into the Dangerously Divine podcast. Just know I love you more today than yesterday, but less than tomorrow. And I will see you all next week. Bye.